I often hear these words. My husband never came home. He disappeared and the police couldn't find him. I think he just ran away, didn't he? Maybe he got tired of you. My sister's words sent chills down my spine. My name is Ella, and I was born a twin. My sister and I have the same face, but our parents always loved my sister, Charlotte, more. Dad, Mom, can I have some money? I'm going out with friends. Have you already spent your allowance this month? Yeah, I have. Please, Dad, I promise I'll do well on my finals. Okay, here you go. Yay, I love you, Daddy. My sister was charming and had a sharp personality, so our parents always spoiled her. On the other hand, I was quiet and reserved, so I was often ignored. Dad, I need to buy a book for my science homework. I already gave you this month's allowance. Use it wisely. Oh, okay. My sister became even more selfish and wanted everything I had. Hey, Ella, I like your outfit. I want it. What? No, please don't open my drawer. I bought that with my allowance. I'm sure it will look better on me. I'll take it. Hey, give it back to me. Mom. Ella's being really mean. Ella, be nice to your sister and just give it to her. But why? My parents only listened to what my sister wanted and never paid attention to me. Whatever she liked, she got, and she took my things whenever she pleased. I spent my days patiently putting up with everything. But luckily, after I graduated from college, I got a job far away from my parents' house. I didn't have to see my parents or sister much anymore, and it made me feel better. However, because I was always compared to my sister and ignored, I didn't have much confidence and didn't do anything fun. I just focused on working hard and living a steady life. During this time, I met my future husband, Daniel. We often met for business meetings. Here you are, please check the document. Thank you. Wow, you've gone into such detail. I hope it will be useful. Of course, I'm always grateful to you. If you'd like, can we have dinner together sometime? Dinner? Oh, sure. I had never had dinner alone with a man before, so I thought it would just be another business meal. But then he started asking me out to eat with him more often, and one day, Ella, would you be my girlfriend? What? Me? Are you serious? Yes. You're a beautiful person inside and out. I love everything about you. I couldn't believe someone would say that to me. I was surprised, but my heart filled with joy. I'm so happy. Thank you, Daniel, I said as my eyes filled with tears. And that's how we officially started dating. Daniel is a hardworking and sincere person. He works for a big company, earns good money, but he's not a big spender. He lives a simple, solid life. After a few years of dating, we got married. I became a full-time housewife and moved in with his parents. Mom, Dad, this is Ella. She's family now. Welcome, Ella. I hear you're a hard-working girl. We're going to be a family now, so don't be shy, okay? Okay, thank you for the warm welcome. I was relieved that they both greeted me with smiles. They run a small business and their house is pretty big. My in-laws and I built a great relationship and we respected each other. Why don't we all go out for dinner today? Ella, is there anything you'd like to eat? Anything I like? Really? I think Italian would be nice. Italian sounds good. I heard there's a new restaurant that just opened nearby. Yeah, let's go there then. Ella, order whatever you like. My in-laws are very kind and always make me happy. Ella, this necklace would look good on you. I used to wear it, but would you like to have it? Wow, it's beautiful. Thank you so much. I'm glad you'll wear it. You're my daughter now. My parents-in-law loved me and treated me like their own daughter. It was such a blessing to be part of a family with such good people. It was so different from living with my own family. Now, I had a home where I felt safe and a family that appreciated me. I thought this happiness would last forever. But then one day, I asked, has Daniel come home yet? No, I tried to contact him, but he didn't return my calls or reply to any of my messages. It's getting late. Do you have any idea where he might be? No, I can't think of anything. I'll check with his friends. Out of the blue, my husband disappeared. He went to work and never came home. I asked his coworkers and friends, but no one had any idea where he went. I reported it to the police, but they couldn't find any clues. I was terrified that he might have had an accident somewhere. His sudden disappearance turned our peaceful, happy life upside down. I felt nothing but anxiety and despair. I didn't know what to do. All I could do was wait for him every day, while my parents-in-law sat on the sofa, crying and worrying about where he could have gone. I couldn't believe he just disappeared like that. Nobody knew how or why it happened. But maybe I did something to hurt him without realizing it. Could this be my fault? When I saw how sad I was, I somehow blamed myself. If it's my fault, maybe I don't belong in this house anymore. We had come so far as a family, and I believed this was where I belonged. I was so overwhelmed with despair that I hid in my room and cried. Then I got a call on my cell phone. Was it my husband? I quickly picked it up and looked at the screen. But it was my sister, Charlotte. She calls me every once in a while, but usually she just brags about things and talks in a way that makes me feel small. I usually let her talk without really listening, but this time I was so upset that I told her what was going on. Hey, what's up, Ella? Not good actually. What's wrong? You sound serious. My husband disappeared. What? The boring husband I saw at your wedding. He disappeared. Did you report it to the police? Yes, but they couldn't find him. Oh really? He probably just ran away, didn't he? Maybe he got tired of you. She laughed like she was making fun of me. Instead of getting angry at her insensitivity, I just blamed myself even more. Maybe she was right. I didn't know if I had done anything wrong to my husband, but I started to feel like it was my fault. I was tormented by guilt and blamed myself every day. I couldn't even eat properly. I thought maybe I should leave this house. Then one night, I couldn't sleep, so I went downstairs to get some water. I overheard my in-laws talking in the living room. What is he thinking? This isn't right. This is too hard. But I'm sure Ella is having the hardest time. Yeah, you're right. I can't believe how much she's been through since he disappeared. I feel so sorry for her. It doesn't make any sense for him to leave such a good wife behind. He must have gotten into some kind of accident or something. Yeah, I can't think of any reason why he would run away. As I listened to them from the stairs, I burst into tears. They cared about me and were worried about me more than themselves. I couldn't stop crying because of their kindness. I realized I shouldn't stay lost in my grief forever. My in-laws were also suffering from the loss of their son. I had to support them as their daughter, and I was determined to get back on my feet. I made your favorite cherry pie today. Let's eat it together. Whoa, Ella, this smells good. If you were to get sick, I'm sure Daniel would be sad. So cheer up. Yes, you're right. Thank you, Ella. Meanwhile, I kept talking to Daniel's colleagues and friends, trying to find out where he might be, but I couldn't find him. Then I noticed that $100,000 was missing from his bank account. I talked to the police, but there was no progress. Since there was no clear evidence of a crime, the police seemed to think he just ran away. I'm home. Sorry I'm late. Hi, Ella. Anything new? No, nothing particular. I guess the police don't really look for missing adults. Anyway, I bought some cupcakes on the way home. You like them, right? Oh, thank you, Ella. They look delicious. My in-laws still seemed a little anxious, but they were starting to regain their strength. We supported and encouraged each other, living together like a real family. Then 7 years after my husband disappeared, my father-in-law passed away. He had been in the hospital for a while due to an illness, but the treatment didn't work. He passed away peacefully in his hospital bed. After the funeral, as my mother-in-law and I were crying, we suddenly heard a familiar voice. Hello, I'm back. Hey, Ella, it's been a while. What, Dario? To my shock, my husband showed up at my father-in-law's funeral, and he was with my sister, Charlotte. What? Why? Where have you been? Well, actually, according to my husband, he had been living at my parents' house with my sister. 7 years ago, Charlotte stole my husband and got pregnant. It seems my parents were in on it too, helping him disappear. I heard Dad passed away, so I'm here to get my inheritance, he said, without even hesitating to reveal his true intentions. He had been living off the savings all this time. Are you crazy? How selfish. My mother-in-law and I were trembling with anger. You don't know how much your father worried before he died, she shouted. At first I devoted my life to you, Ella, Dario said coldly. But no matter what you did, you were always so boring. It wasn't fun being with you. Yeah, right, Charlotte chimed in. Ella, you were super boring. But Charlotte, she has the same face as you, but she's so different. When I met Charlotte, my life changed. She was perfect for me. I felt really happy when I was with her. I couldn't have kids with you, Ella, but I had a kid with her right away. Charlotte and I were meant to be together. My husband tried to justify his infidelity with a selfish excuse. My sister, who had never worked a day in her life, found out at our wedding that my husband worked for a big company and made good money, so she went after him behind my back. You thought you could take my things like you always did, didn't you? You saw some good money this time, right? Whatever, Charlotte said smugly. He just ended up loving me more. Anyway, he's the son, so he has the right to inherit Dad's money, right? Yeah, I'm entitled to it, Dario added. So give you my money. It seemed like my sister had brainwashed him into coming to his parents' house to demand money. I couldn't believe how pathetic he had become. That's enough. It's not going to happen. My mother-in-law, unable to hold back any longer, lost her temper. Why? It's my money. I don't care how many times you ask. Go home. I'll be back. Prepare my money next time. My mother-in-law was so furious that my husband and sister finally left. But after that, they started following us around, harassing us. Hey, just give it to me already. I have to pay back the money. I don't care. It's your problem. It's my money, and I'm supposed to get it, they insisted. Why should I give it to you? Now leave. But my husband and sister wouldn't give up, no matter what. No matter how many times I told them to leave, they kept coming back. I was about to turn them away when my mother-in-law came out from the back. Are they here again? She asked. Yes, I replied. My sister angrily confronted my mother-in-law, who was clearly disgusted. Your son is begging, and you're just acting like he's. My son is dead, my mother-in-law interrupted firmly. Huh. My husband and sister were speechless at her firmness. There's a grave in the backyard, my mother-in-law added. What? No way. They rushed to the small cemetery in the woods behind the house. The gravestone there had my husband's name on it. He was officially declared dead after being missing for 7 years, allowing my mother-in-law to inherit the entire fortune. My marriage to Daniel was already over. Hey, I'm alive. You see me right here. My ex-husband panicked. Yes, he's alive, so he should get the money, right? My sister screamed in desperation. You were lucky, my mother-in-law said coldly. I'm not asking for alimony for cheating because legally he's already dead. What alimony? They both asked, confused. If you keep following me and asking for money, I'll take serious action against you. Wait, I'm your son. It's my money, and this isn't fair. My ex-husband pleaded. My son is dead, my mother-in-law repeated. If he were alive, I'd be suing him for alimony. He betrayed his family, so he'd owe plenty. But since he's dead, you get nothing. Now, leave. My ex-husband and sister tried to play the victim, but we coldly rejected them. They left in a hurry when they heard the word alimony. Afterward, my parents came crying to me, as if they had heard the story from my sister. We're really in trouble. We have a lot of debts and need your help. We're family after all. Family? I said bitterly. You took my husband away and caused me so much pain for so long. I'm not giving you any money. No way, they gasped, shocked. My parents had been spending a lot of money on my sister, and now they couldn't afford it anymore. That's what happens when you spoil someone like that. They brought it on themselves. My ex-husband had been living with them without a job, thinking he had plenty of money saved up. But my sister spent a lot of money carelessly, and raising a child is expensive. Soon, his savings ran out, and they ended up in debt, even with my parents' support. What are you going to do? Do something about the money, they said. I'll get a job, my ex-husband said, but since he had been declared deceased, he had no official records and couldn't get a proper job. What are we going to do now? We're in huge debt. I never thought I'd have a second child, my sister complained. I didn't think I'd get pregnant again either, she added. But it's your baby, so you figure it out. My sister's pregnancy made their financial situation even worse. I didn't care what happened between my ex-husband and my sister. As for me, I lived a happy and peaceful life with my mother-in-law. How about Paris? I suggested. Paris? That would be wonderful. I've always wanted to visit Europe, and you said you wanted to see Buckingham Palace too. Why don't we take a trip to Europe? Really? That sounds like a dream come true. My mother-in-law is the only family I have who truly cares about me. I will take good care of her. and we will continue to support each other as a family. I am a 25-year-old male and the youngest of 4 kids in my family. My mom, 52, and dad, 54, have 4 children: Michael, 31, Sarah, 28, my twin brother Carl, 25, and me. 8 years ago, I was disowned by my family, but recently they have invited me, my wife, 27, and our daughter, 1, for Christmas. After getting conflicting advice from my friends, one of my buddies suggested I post my dilemma here to see what random internet strangers would say. For context, growing up, I was the black sheep of the family, and I knew that from a very young age. My family is full of athletes. My dad was a star basketball player for his school. My mom played volleyball, Michael played soccer, Sarah played softball, and Carl was the star running back for the football team. I was never really interested in any of those physical sports. Instead, I was interested in archery, which my family called a wimpy sport. My parents were always invested in my siblings and rarely attended my events. I basically had to beg them to come to my tournaments. Between the ages of 14 and 16, I participated in about 20 archery tournaments, but my parents only showed up to one. I was never neglected by them, but they were never emotionally there for me as they were for my siblings, and as a teenager, I resented that. Whenever I tried to bring this up to them, they would always call me an attention seeker. However, this is not why I was disowned by my family. When I was 15, I began dating Amy, now 25, who was in the same grade as me at that time. After about 6 to 7 months of dating, I introduced her to my folks and my siblings, and they really liked her. I know I was young, but I could see myself having a future with her. Almost 2 years later, one of Amy's ex-friends told me that she had been cheating on me for a couple of months. At the time, I didn't know who the guy was, but after confronting her, she told me that it was my twin brother. She basically told me that while at first she loved me, the love she had for my brother surpassed that. Later that day, when I confronted Carl at home, I was so enraged that I sucker punched him and knocked him out. I admit that I should not have gotten violent, but years of resentment towards him and the rest of the family just burst open. In exchange for my family not pressing charges on me, as I could have been tried as an adult in court, I was sent to live with my paternal aunt, 48, who at this point was estranged from the family and lived in another city about 2 hours away. From then on, I have not had any contact with them. At first, it was tough, but later on, with support from my aunt and her husband, 48, I moved on from wanting a relationship with them. I transferred to a different high school and attended a university in my aunt's city, graduating as an electrical engineer. I later met my wife and got married to her. At the time of my wedding, I thought about inviting my family but went against it because I did not want any sort of drama at my wedding. From that point, my wife and I bought a house an hour away from my aunt and were blessed with a daughter a year ago. About a week ago, I received a Facebook message from my mother and father wanting to reconnect over Christmas at their house. I told them that I would consider it as I possibly had other plans but would give them a clear answer soon. Later on, both Michael and Sarah sent me friend requests, which felt weird to me. My wife has told me that if I decide to go, she and my daughter would spend Christmas at my father-in-law's house as she does not want to deal with unwanted stress since she is 2 months pregnant, and I agree with her. My question to those reading this is, should I go and try to reconcile with my family or should I not? I'm very conflicted on what to do. On one hand, they perhaps feel bad about what they did to me and want to apologize. But on the other hand, perhaps if I go there, they will try to make me apologize to Carl, which I do not want to do. Any advice would be helpful. Top advice before the update. I think you should go another time. Spend Christmas with your wife and child. Visit your family at a less stressful time to see if they have any ulterior motives. It might just be about them wanting to see their grandchildren and not so much about you, which would be hurtful to you. Yeah, I agree. Go another time. I was thinking the same thing. It could be something related to the grandkids. Spend Christmas with your wife and child. Christmas is too big of an event to meet them. Also, update us. I can't get this post out of my head. I can imagine a parent kicking out their child who was betrayed by their other child. They might want to reconnect due to money, the grandchild, I don't know. But it's weird that even his siblings texted OP. I hope it's for good reasons though. I honestly wouldn't spend Christmas away from my pregnant wife for them. Maybe I'm missing something, but why Christmas? They could have reached out at any time and given you a chance to pick a convenient time, as they are the ones trying to amend things. I don't know, it seems weird to me. I personally wouldn't go unless you desperately want them back in your life. Optics. They found out OP has a kid, is successful, and now they're trying to heal the family so they don't look like trash for abandoning their son years ago. It's a trap. Notice they didn't open with any remorse or any sign of an apology. They want something: money, free work, an organ, access to your babies, or just to look good to their friends. I'm not saying don't go, but keep your expectations low. Be ready for the "we need you to do X for us in order to properly reconcile" speech and have a quick exit prepared. I don't know. As a parent, I cannot fathom going no contact with one of my children for 8 years after my other child did something so cruel to him. So he hit him? That is just inconceivable to me. I would totally understand if my son hit his brother if he ever did something like that. Maybe I'm wrong, and I know I'm not supposed to say that, but we're all still human. Whether you can move past the fact they abandoned you to your aunts and turned their backs for 8 years is your choice, but personally, I don't know if I could. If you can't and don't want to see them again, I doubt anyone would blame you. If they do, they don't know the full story. If they do know the full story, then they're not worth your time either. And now for the update. I wanted to post earlier, but some things got in the way. 2 days after Christmas, my wife began to experience unbearable pain in her abdomen area, and she could hardly stand on her 2 feet. My sister-in-law, 30, and I rushed her to the hospital, where we found out that my wife had suffered a miscarriage and that the fetus had to be removed right away. Honestly, the worst part was explaining to my wife what had happened. Due to complications surrounding the operation, my wife was forced to stay for 2 more days. Honestly, I have been trying to stay strong for my wife and my daughter, but I'm struggling right now. On to the update of the original post. Most of you that commented on the same day told me not to spend Christmas with them because of the significance of that holiday. I agreed and decided I would spend the rest of the holidays with my wife. They never made time for me, so why should I make time for them? When I texted them this, I assumed they would try to argue with me, but rather they said they respected my opinion and could not wait to see me after the holidays. I began to do some digging into my family to try to figure out why they reached out. Michael is a corporate lawyer who works for a major company in my hometown. By looking through his Facebook page, he has 2 daughters and was married to his wife in 2016. Sarah appears to be married to a doctor. She was studying to be a nurse 8 years ago, and they have a son together. I have a friend who lives in my hometown and has parents who are friends with my parents. When I asked her about Sarah, she told me that Sarah had divorced her first husband, the one she was dating 8 years ago, after he had committed mail fraud. Carl got married to Amy right after high school, and they have 2 kids together. I cannot exactly figure out what he or his wife does for a living through Facebook, but judging that they bought a big house last year in the midst of a pandemic tells me they're not really struggling. My dad seems to be going through a midlife crisis, and my mother is really into the wellness community. Then I began to list the reasons why they might have wanted to reach out to me now. Money. 8 years ago, my parents' combined salary was higher than my wife's and my salary. Given that my siblings are not struggling financially, money might not be the reason. Organ donation. This could be the case, but it seems unlikely. A commenter suggested that Carl, given he is my twin, would be my most likely match, but this seems unlikely because he was tagged in a Facebook post. My paternal grandpa, 79 male, and grandma, 76 female, had 4 children. My dad was the second oldest, and my aunt was the third. After college, my aunt came out to her parents as bisexual and began dating her girlfriend. My grandparents immediately disowned her and refused to have any contact with her. However, about 4 years ago, my grandpa began to reach out. About a month ago, my grandpa had been asking about me, what I was doing in life, and whether I was married or had kids. My aunt responded by calling my grandpa out for wanting to know about me after he supported Carl for what he did. That is when the whole situation changed. My grandpa told my aunt that it was because I had cheated on Amy with one of her close friends, so I deserved to be estranged. My grandpa is a religious nut, so he looks down on cheating. He had been told by my family that after the friend who I allegedly cheated with confessed to Amy, she went to Carl and Sarah for support and comfort. When I found out about this, I confronted and brutally attacked Carl and Sarah. While Sarah was the one who tried to break me and Carl apart, I did not lay a finger on her, and I did not do that to Carl. When my aunt was telling me this, my jaw dropped. I could not believe that they hated me so much that they were willing to make up a terrible lie about me and spread it around. My aunt later told Grandpa the full truth about what truly happened, but my aunt told me he was shocked because he always thought Carl was a good kid. My grandpa then asked my aunt for my number, which she declined to give. I figured out why my parents and siblings wanted to get in touch with me. It turns out my grandpa had told my parents and siblings that if they did not apologize for what they did to me and have me over for the family Christmas dinner, they would be cut off from his will. For context, he is a multimillionaire. So that is why they reached out to me, not to apologize for how they all wronged me in the past, but rather because if they did not, they would not get anything from Grandpa. What a bunch of greedy people. After hearing about this from my aunt, I decided to block all of them. Why should I respond to them at this point? All of them are dead to me. I have a wife to support after what she went through and a family that respects me, including my in-laws. However, this does not end here. 3 days after New Year's Eve, I received a call from an unknown number on my work phone. I'm used to getting calls from unknown numbers because of my career. But when I picked up, I heard my grandfather's voice. He most likely got my number from my company website. The first thing he did was apologize for not trying to get in contact with me for the past 8 years. He told me he was sorry that he could not be there for important events such as my graduation, wedding, and the birth of my daughter. I was not really close to him before, so him cutting me off did not bother me. Later in the call, he told me he was so disgusted with the rest of my family that he is cutting them off as well and adding me to the will. I honestly do not know how to feel about that, as the money would be helpful, but at the same time, I do not want him to use this as a way to force a relationship between me and my daughter. We talked for about half an hour. The way the call went made me think that perhaps I could build a good relationship with my grandpa, but then he told me something that got me really pissed. He told me that he was disappointed that my daughter had not taken the family name. For context, after I got married to my wife, the issue of what last name to use as a couple came up. For some legal reasons, I wasn't able to change my last name to my wife's last name, but we decided as a couple that all of our future children would have her last name. At this point, I unloaded on my grandpa, calling him a senile old man and many other hurtful things, and told him to never contact me ever again. The audacity of this man to say that after what I went through is something I will not let slide. He cannot use the money I might receive in the will to control me. Even if I receive the money, I will donate it to a local charity. But he is a man of false promises, so this is unlikely. These past few weeks have been really tough for me, and I hope to make it to the other side. My wife has privated her Facebook account, and my in-laws have done the same. What they will do to try to contact me is beyond me. Hell, they would probably hire a private detective to try to find me. I believe they do not know where we live. But you never know. I've thought about getting a restraining order, but given that there are lawyers within the family, getting a restraining order will be hard. I did not really get any time to answer any questions given in my last post before it was deleted for some reason. I will do my best to answer any questions for the next day or two, but after this, I'm done using the site for a while. Thank you for all your advice, and I wish you all the best in this new year. Thank you. Sorry for your loss. I hope your wife gets well soon. Your family is having a difficult few weeks. Don't let those people get to you. I have to say, besides Grandpa's awful comments about the last name, at least the truth is out that makes those people look bad. Grandpa can keep the money if it comes your way. Before you do something, think about it when you are calm. You chose good people to be your family, your wife, daughter, in-laws at the end. They're all that matter. The others can go to hell. I'm sorry for what you've been through and for the loss of your child. Remember, you have support in a family that loves you. You are wanted and loved by them, even if your parents and siblings aren't those people. You are not alone. Seek professional support and help for yourself and your wife. It's a lot you've gone through. Unfortunately, due to the new variant, it has been delayed. Offloading on your granddad might have convinced him that your aunt was full of crap and to give your family their inheritance, especially since they tried to convince him that you're some barely contained psycho and you offloaded at the first disagreement with him. You were well within your rights to be offended, but you just cut off your nose to spite your face there. The guy must be old and is going to have old-fashioned values. Did you try explaining that it's something that's done in society nowadays, or did you see red immediately? To be honest, you've had a really rough time of things, and I imagine that must have been the straw that broke the camel's back, right? I just figured you might. I ain't gonna be the one looking after the old lady. My husband's sharp words sliced through the air, echoed by my sister-in-law's agreement. Stunned, my brother-in-law and I exchanged glances, frozen in disbelief. Why don't you and Sarah take care of her if you're so concerned? We don't need the burden of an old woman in our home, spat my sister-in-law, her tone dripping with disdain. My husband remained silent, his lack of remorse chilling. How could they discard their own parents so callously, those who had raised and loved them? Anger simmered within me for the first time in my life, but my husband and sister-in-law were blind to a surprising truth about my mother-in-law. Sarah and her family will be taking care of me. Do you think $1 million will cover the car and accessible living accommodations? The revelation stunned us all, my mother-in-law's unexpected declaration hanging heavy in the air. In that moment, my husband and sister-in-law unwittingly sealed their fate, oblivious to the consequences of their words. My name is Sarah. At 40, I found solace in my career as an art teacher, inspired by my parents' artistic legacy. I married Gavin, Emily's son, and we raised 2 beautiful daughters, Autumn and Kate. Life was peaceful until the harsh reality struck. My mother-in-law suffered a stroke. She had always been a kind soul, treating me like her own daughter since childhood. But after Ryder, my father-in-law, passed away, she seemed to lose her spirit. I noticed a change in my mother-in-law's demeanor and made it a point to visit her often with my kids. We'd spend quality time together, even venturing out on outings that seemed to lift her spirits. But one day, I received a frantic call from my children informing me that she had collapsed. Without a second thought, I rushed to the hospital, hastily explaining the situation to my understanding boss at the art school where I taught. Upon arrival, I was met with a scene that left me speechless. My husband, sister-in-law, and kids were engaged in a heated exchange. Dad, Aunt, why would you say something like that? Grandma is your real mom, right? My children's innocent voices pleaded, only to be met with my husband's sharp retort. Shut up. You kids have no business in this. Keep your mouth shut. Witnessing my husband shouting at our children in the hospital, and my sister-in-law glaring at them, I intervened, desperately trying to diffuse the tension. What's going on here? Calm down, I urged, struggling to catch my breath. But instead of cooperation, my husband and sister-in-law unloaded the situation onto me and swiftly left. It wasn't the first time my husband had treated our children and me differently, showing little concern for our well-being. Despite his part-time job, which kept him occupied for 4 days a week, he failed to contribute significantly to our family's finances. Worse yet, he squandered what little he earned on himself, leaving little for our needs. His absence extended beyond his job, with him rarely present at home. Even when he was preoccupied with his phone or lost in a comic book, ignoring my pleas for help with household chores and quality time with our kids. It was a stark contrast to the generosity we had experienced from my parents-in-law's friends when we first started our family. I never imagined our life would take this turn. It leads me to question if I should have given more thought to my choice of life partner. As for my sister-in-law, she mirrors my husband's indifference towards me, our children, and even our mother-in-law. It's not just with her, she treated my father-in-law the same when he was alive. Her sole interest seems to be her job as a hostess where she entertains young men. Consequently, she neglects household chores and caring for our shared home. Whenever our mother-in-law attempts to communicate with her, she snaps back with disdain, prioritizing her own time and needs. The saying, "the same parents' hearts are unknown to their children," couldn't ring truer in this situation, or rather, it's even worse. Witnessing such atrocious behavior from my husband and sister-in-law left me speechless. Yet amidst this turmoil, my main concern remained with my mother-in-law, who was undergoing surgery. Prayers for her well-being filled my thoughts as I navigated through the chaos. Amidst it all, a familiar face arrived at the hospital, someone I had called on our way there. "Sister-in-law, how is Mom doing?" Shane, my husband's younger brother, stood before me, accompanied by his wife Maya and their twin daughters who were the same age as our children. Panting and drenched in sweat, they had rushed to be with us. Shane had found success as a novelist, his hobby-turned-career flourishing after one of his novels became a hit online during his university days. He married Mia 2 years after graduating and welcomed twin daughters. Now, they lived peacefully in the city, away from the family home. "She's still in surgery. It's uncertain what will happen," I informed them, grateful for their presence amidst the uncertainty. I wished I could offer words of reassurance, but faced with such uncertainty, my attempts felt feeble. However, the younger brother-in-law appeared slightly relieved, a stark contrast to the tension radiating from his older siblings. Unlike my husband and sister-in-law, he genuinely cared for us and our mother-in-law. Concerned about her aging and widowhood, he remained in close contact, frequently bringing his family back to their parents' house to check on her. These visits served as a source of comfort and strength for our mother-in-law. My in-laws, inherently kind souls, always avoided unnecessary conflict with my husband, sister-in-law, and brother-in-law since childhood. Sadly, this may have inadvertently contributed to my husband and sister-in-law's current demeanor. Yet amidst the discord, my brother-in-law emerged as a beacon of decency. Hours later, the surgery concluded and the doctor ushered us into a small room. "We've done all we could. She'll survive, but there will be lingering effects. She'll require round-the-clock care," the doctor disclosed, leaving us breathless. The prospect of my mother-in-law's recovery filled me with hope. Neglecting her care would mean enduring more interactions with my husband and sister-in-law than I cared for. Despite our reservations, my brother-in-law and I resolved to involve them. After thorough explanation and persuasion, they reluctantly agreed. Gathering at my in-laws' house, we convened a meeting while our mother-in-law remained hospitalized. Both my husband and sister-in-law attended, but their demeanor quickly soared as complaints poured forth. They adamantly declared their disinterest in caring for our mother-in-law. "I've taken care of that old hag." "Same here." Those appalling words from my husband left both my brother-in-law's family and me frozen. "Brother, sister, don't joke at a time like this. If you won't look after her, what's going to happen to Mom? Why should we care? You and Sarah can take care of her," my sister-in-law dismissively replied, fiddling with her beautifully manicured nails. My husband, too, nodded with a bored expression etched on his face. "Then we should consider placing mother-in-law in a nursing home." "What nonsense. You're suggesting we use our money for that old woman? A nursing home? Are you kidding? That's just throwing money down the drain." My brother-in-law finally erupted at their outrageous remarks. "So you're seriously abandoning Mom, not willing to care for her or even put her in a facility? Shane, you're being annoying. If you're so concerned, why don't you and Sarah take care of her? We don't need a senile old creature around," my sister-in-law spat out, her expression deeply exasperated. My husband, too, showed signs of frustration. Unable to stay silent any longer, I interjected, "Hold on, what's the meaning of this? She's your mother, and Gavin's and Shane's right. As if we cared just because she's our mom. Why do you assume we have to take care of her? Shane is her son too, so you and Shane can take care of her. Sarah, you don't have formal qualifications, but you've been caring for Mom almost every day, right? So looking after her should be a piece of cake for you, right?" With that, my sister-in-law smirked in the most disgusting way, and I no longer had the energy to argue. The situation was the same for my brother-in-law's family. We decided to bring this issue up with mother-in-law first. As we were leaving their home, my husband smirked unpleasantly, saying he wouldn't be coming home until this issue was settled. That they would so easily abandon their own mother, who had raised and loved them, left me in disbelief. For the first time in my life, I felt a deep sense of dismay. Days later, a deep anger simmered within me as my brother-in-law's family, and I visited the hospital where mother-in-law lay admitted. Stepping into her hospital room, we were met with a faint smile on her lips, a feeble attempt to mask her pain. "Oh, Sarah and Shane, I'm sorry for being a bother," she murmured weakly. Each visit, she'd apologize, tugging at our hearts. "Mom, don't say such things. Look, we've brought your favorite grapes and pears. If there's anything else you'd like to eat, just tell us, and we'll get it for you," I reassured her, offering a semblance of comfort amidst the sterile hospital setting. While mother-in-law's spirits had improved, her condition remained precarious. As a side effect mentioned by the doctor, she had become paralyzed on her right side, rendering simple tasks like eating an arduous feat, necessitating assistance from the nurses. Confronted with her frailty, my brother-in-law's family and I shared a silent resolve. We knew we needed to confront my husband and sister-in-law, proposing the idea of living together to care for her. "I can't believe Olivia and Gavin would do such a thing to me," mother-in-law sighed, her voice tinged with sadness. In that moment, a pang of realization struck me. She must have sensed deep down that returning home might no longer be an option. Despite it being her own house, my sister-in-law and her husband resided there. The bitter irony wasn't lost on me. Knowing their disposition, They'd likely treat mother-in-law like a nuisance, a burden to be managed. As frustration clouded my thoughts, I couldn't shake the looming dread of my husband and sister-in-law's return, likely coercing my mother-in-law into some sort of care facility. But amidst my turmoil, mother-in-law surprised us all with an unexpected request. "Sarah, could you please fetch the banking card from the drawer of that desk over there?" With a solemn expression, she pointed to the drawer adjacent to her hospital bed. Inside lay valuable items, including the banking card I had previously brought her from her home during the hospital visit. Perplexed by her request, I retrieved the card nonetheless. With a sense of urgency, she opened it before us, revealing its contents to my brother-in-law, his wife, and me. "I've got savings here. Could you, Shane, make use of it?" Her words left us stunned. The balance displayed on the card surpassed anything we had ever seen. In that moment, I resolved to confront my husband and sister-in-law with something unexpected. A few days later, my brother-in-law and I summoned our spouses for a crucial meeting at mother-in-law's hospital. Their disdain was evident upon hearing the venue, but curiosity piqued when we mentioned that mother-in-law had important matters to discuss regarding her future. They likely assumed she had decided to relinquish the house and, of course, the money. The next day, they arrived at mother-in-law's hospital room, greeted by a gathering of myself, our children, brother-in-law, and his family. Their expressions soared as they questioned our presence. "Why are all of you here?" "Mom, we just want clarification. What exactly do you plan to do?" As questions lingered in the air, mother-in-law's face remained solemn, her response forthcoming. "I have asked Sarah and Shane to gather you all here because I have crucial matters to discuss about our future," mother-in-law began. Tone firm yet somber, my husband and sister-in-law exchanged puzzled glances, unsure of what to expect. Taking a deep breath, mother-in-law continued, "As per your wishes, I will move out once I am discharged. I will no longer show up in front of you or interfere with your lives ever again." The gravity of her words hung heavy in the air as my husband and sister-in-law stared at her, their expressions akin to deer caught in headlights. "Sarah and Shane have filled me in on everything," mother-in-law continued, addressing their discomfort head-on. "The conversation you had about me in my house, the way you called me a terrible burden and planned to cast me out. I know it all." Before my husband and sister-in-law could respond, mother-in-law silenced them with a stern gaze. "Hold on, the conversation isn't over yet," she admonished, redirecting their attention back to her. "In exchange for my departure and our final goodbye, I'm asking both of you to leave the house as well," mother-in-law declared firmly. "Naturally, I will be cutting ties and excluding you from any inheritance." The shock on my husband and sister-in-law's faces was palpable. "From now on, I will be in Sarah's care. As I mentioned before, would 1 million suffice to make the house accessible and purchase a new car?" mother-in-law inquired, her gaze unwavering. Upon her insistence, I retrieved the banking card tucked away in my pocket and presented it to my husband and sister-in-law. Their disbelief was evident as they stared at the balance displayed on the card. 1 million? How? What's happening? It's impossible, my husband stammered, confusion etched on his face. "It's your father's legacy money. He'd been saving all this time," mother-in-law explained calmly, revealing a truth that had been kept hidden from them. Their speechlessness mirrored our own from days before. As mother-in-law concluded her revelation, the weight of the truth settled over us all. "I was planning to split this money between you two, but after understanding your true feelings, I've changed my mind, Olivia Gavin. You are no longer my children. I want you to leave this house." My mother-in-law's voice cut through the air, her tone cold and final. My husband and sister-in-law were jolted back to reality by her abrupt dismissal. What? What are you saying? Gavin and I are your legitimate children too," my sister-in-law protested, disbelief etched on her face. "The only child I have is Shane. Plus, I have kind daughters-in-law Maya and Sarah. You don't know them. Start packing your belongings now, sever your ties with Shane and Sarah, and leave." Mother-in-law's words were uncompromising, leaving no room for argument. Having only ever known my mother-in-law's gentle demeanor, I was astounded to hear such harsh words from her. Her eyes bore a fierce, determined look, one that brooked no objections from my husband or sister-in-law. Though stunned into silence, I quickly collected myself, pulling out the idea card and placing it next to the bank card. "Here's the thing, Gavin. I'm taking this to City Hall right after I declare what you are. Are you serious?" My husband's eyes widened in shock at the sight of the divorce application I brandished. This goes to show how much you must despise me, right? Don't worry about Autumn and Kate. I'll take care of them. You just go live your life the way you want to, I declared, my voice steady despite the turmoil raging within me. The revelation sent my husband into a fit of trembling, erupting in a loud outburst. His sister joined in, yelling and lunging at my mother-in-law. Thankfully, my brother-in-law and his wife managed to restrain them, explaining the situation to the nurses who rushed over. Security was soon called, and my husband and sister-in-law were escorted out of the building, their protests echoing through the halls. With the help of a lawyer arranged by my mother-in-law, I initiated divorce proceedings. In the end, I not only received a financial settlement but also custody of our daughters. My mother-in-law's last will and testament ensured her estranged son and daughter wouldn't inherit a thing. The family home was sold, and my ex-husband and his sister were forced to move into a shabby apartment, their constant bickering annoying their landlord and neighbors. Meanwhile, I welcomed my mother-in-law into our home after her discharge from the hospital. Together with my kids, we took care of her, maintaining a peaceful and mutually supportive relationship. Despite the challenges, we found solace in our day-to-day lives, navigating them together in harmony. You're always complaining about being cold, my mother-in-law remarked, her tone tinged with irritation. So, I went ahead and set up a bonfire in the yard for you. Go on, warm yourself up out there before you turn into an icicle. She gestured towards the backyard, visible through the window. Curious, I followed her pointing finger, only to be met with a sight that filled me with despair. My name is Rosetta. I'm 27 years old, a working housewife who juggles part-time shifts at a nearby supermarket. My husband Andy is 29, 2 years my senior, and works in an office. Together, we have a 1-year-old son named Daniel. Around a year before Daniel was born, we made the decision to move in with Andy's family. With his father's passing before our marriage and his mother living alone, it made sense financially to share a home and save money for our child. However, since then, the subtle jabs from my mother-in-law have only increased. After giving birth, I took a step back from my job to focus on Daniel. However, my mother-in-law wasn't pleased. I can take care of Daniel. Why don't you work outside? She'd say, implying it was the norm for a daughter-in-law to work when living together. She labeled me lazy for staying home. Adding insult to injury, she criticized my weight gain post-childbirth, accusing me of laziness. Despite feeling unwell, I resumed work, but I chose part-time hours to be with Daniel. Yet my mother-in-law wasn't satisfied. Can't you work more? She'd demand. I could, but Daniel was still young, and I yearned for more time with him. However, expressing this only earned me more disdain. Oh, are you implying dissatisfaction with my care? I raised Andy. I can raise a child better than you, who fell ill right after childbirth. Just work longer hours, she'd retort. I felt overwhelmed by her attitude, so I confided in Andy. Hoping for support, I explained, she wants me to work more, but I don't want to sacrifice time with Daniel. Can you talk to her? Disappointingly, Andy sided with his mother. Mom knows best about raising kids. You're only working part-time, right? We're here to save money, so just do as she says. Besides, you hadn't lost your post-pregnancy weight, he scoffed, echoing my mother-in-law's criticisms and urging me to work harder. One day, my mother-in-law decided to take matters into her own hands by calling my workplace and persuading them to increase my hours. Her connection with the part-time leader at the supermarket ensured my compliance. Unable to oppose this decision, I found myself juggling longer shifts alongside the already burdensome household chores. I barely had a moment for Daniel amidst the relentless demands. Leave Daniel to me, my mother-in-law would insist. You focus on work and house chores. And mind you, you haven't shed any weight yet, have you? It's rather unsightly, she'd remark, her criticisms cutting deep. Yet when Daniel needed attention or made a mess, suddenly, I was expected to intervene promptly. You're his mother? Handle it. Can't you discipline him properly? She'd scold, adding another layer of pressure. One particularly frustrating day, as I diligently cleaned the yard per my mother-in-law's instructions, Andy's criticism stung. Why are you so dirty? Don't come in the house like that, he chided, oblivious to my efforts. Feeling unjustly attacked, I snapped back, airing my grievances about the unequal distribution of household responsibilities. His reaction was dismissive, directing me to another room without so much as a glance. Fed up with the situation, I made a decision. Despite most of my salary going towards household expenses, I began documenting my mother-in-law and Andy's behavior. I recorded their words on my phone and meticulously chronicled daily events in a diary. It was a step towards reclaiming my voice and asserting my worth. On a chilly winter day, I gathered the courage to ask Andy for some money to invest in winter clothes. "Why do you need new ones?" he retorted, dismissing my request. "You earn so little yet desire luxuries. Your old ones should suffice. Besides, they don't fit anymore," he added, not hesitating to critique my weight gain. With a begrudging gesture, he tossed a $50 bill my way. "That should cover a few items," he remarked brusquely. Though I knew $50 wouldn't stretch far, I accepted it gratefully, silently plotting my exit from Andy's family home. On my way back from work, I stopped by a store and purchased a much-needed down jacket, a small step toward reclaiming some sense of comfort and security. However, my relief was short-lived. The following day, to my dismay, my new down jacket was nowhere to be found. Confused and frustrated, I approached my mother-in-law, who lounged leisurely in the living room. "Have you seen my down jacket?" I inquired. Her response left me speechless. "Oh, I assumed you didn't need it anymore, so I got rid of it," she remarked casually. "What? I just bought it yesterday," I exclaimed incredulously. Her nonchalant reply only added insult to injury. "Did you? I must have placed it in the shed outside. Why don't you go and check?" Hastily, I dashed to the shed, my heart sinking as I found my new jacket discarded amidst the refuse. Despite the biting cold, I attempted to salvage it, but the stench lingered stubbornly. Knowing that burning it indoors would only invite more complaints from my mother-in-law and Andy, I resolved to hand-wash it in the dead of night, hoping to conceal the evidence of its mishap. The next day brought another devastating discovery. Returning home from work, I noticed an eerie emptiness in my bedroom. All the drawers on the shelf that housed my clothes were devoid of their contents. My wardrobe had been stripped bare. Racing to confront my mother-in-law, I demanded answers. "Where are my clothes?" I implored. Her response hit me like a blow. "You bought new ones, didn't you? So repurpose your old, dirty clothes into rags for cleaning. Now you can contribute to the household chores," she retorted callously. My heart sank further as I opened the cleaning closet, confirming her words. There, amidst the cleaning supplies, lay rags fashioned from my discarded garments. And as if her cruelty knew no bounds, I noticed my jacket, which had been left out to dry on the balcony, was now missing. "You're always complaining about being cold," my mother-in-law interjected, her tone laced with false concern. "So, I took the liberty of lighting a bonfire for you in the yard." With a slight, insincere smile, she motioned towards the garden outside my window, where flames danced in the fire pit. Peering outside, I watched in disbelief as shreds of my jacket fluttered in the wind. "You burned my clothes. How am I supposed to survive this winter?" I protested, my voice trembling with outrage. But my mother-in-law remained indifferent to my distress. "You're chubby, so you'll be fine," she quipped callously before sauntering away, a smirk playing on her lips. I was left speechless, grappling with a mixture of fury and despair. With trembling hands, I hastily gathered my essentials. My diary, phone, and precious Daniel wrapped snugly in my only remaining coat. Ignoring the biting cold, I fled from Andy's house, clad only in a thin t-shirt, as heavy snowflakes cascaded around me. Panic surged through me as I realized the gravity of my situation. Thankfully, a compassionate neighbor, who had always harbored suspicions about my strained relationship with my mother-in-law, came to my aid. Despite the tension between them, this neighbor had remained vigilant, concerned for my well-being since the day I moved in with Andy's family. Recognizing the signs of distress, they offered me refuge and swiftly transported me to my parents' home, an hour away. Upon my arrival, my mother's eyes widened in alarm at the sight of my skin attire. "Why are you dressed like that? Are you feeling unwell? Is it too warm in the car?" she fretted, her concern palpable. Forced to flee Andy's household, I found myself in a dire situation. My clothes reduced to rags, my new jacket consumed by flames. All along, I had been meticulously gathering evidence for what I hoped would be a favorable divorce, but the threat to my safety became too palpable to ignore. With Daniel snugly wrapped in a coat, mercifully asleep, I fled, tears of relief streaming down my face at the thought that my mother-in-law hadn't wrested him from my arms. My mother, recognizing the urgency of my plight, sprang into action, rallying support. She swiftly reached out to my father and another individual whose intervention would prove crucial in the days to come. The following day brought a glimmer of hope in the form of unexpected aid. Responding to my mother's urgent call, my father-in-law's mother, whom we affectionately referred to as Grandma, arrived at our doorstep. As it turned out, my father and Andy's late father had shared a deep bond, and Grandma, despite the passing years, had maintained ties with my family. Our connection through these familial bonds had initially brought Andy and me together, forging the path to our marriage. Before our union, Auntie, Grandma's daughter and Andy's mother, had exuded warmth and kindness towards my parents. However, the relentless pressure and harassment from Andy's mother gradually tainted Andy's demeanor, transforming his once affable nature into cold indifference towards me. As I laid out the evidence before Grandma, her fury mirrored that of my parents. Without hesitation, she sprang into action, swiftly contacting a lawyer to initiate divorce proceedings. In a matter of days, arrangements were made, and we, accompanied by my parents and Grandma, embarked on a visit to Andy's family home, leaving Daniel in the capable care of my nearby sister. Upon our arrival, my mother-in-law's reaction was predictably hostile. "Where's Daniel, you kidnappers?" she bellowed as she stormed out of the house. However, Grandma, undeterred, stepped forward to challenge her accusation. "Who are you calling the kidnapper, you money grubber?" she retorted, her voice dripping with disdain. Andy, apparently having taken time off work for the occasion, joined us as we gathered to discuss the impending divorce, Daniel's custody, and the fate of the family property. As tensions simmered, the lawyer laid out the plan. "We're here to address Rosetta and Andy's divorce, determine custody arrangements for Daniel, and discuss the sale of this property," he announced solemnly. Andy scoffed at the notion of selling the property. "What do you mean by selling the land? It's Dad's ancestral home, and Mom inherited it. You can't just sell it," he interjected derisively. The lawyer, however, remained unfazed, presenting a document outlining the overdue land rent payments spanning several years since Andy's father's passing. While the building may be under Andy's mother's ownership, the land itself belongs to Andy's father's family, the lawyer explained calmly. "We've been lenient regarding the unpaid land rent, but now it's time to settle the debt and proceed with the sale." The document detailed the accumulated rent for the land over several years following the passing of my father-in-law. As my mother-in-law scanned the figures, a look of shock crossed her face. How can we pay this all of a sudden?" she exclaimed in disbelief. Grandma swiftly silenced her with a stern quiet before addressing the issue at hand. "We've been sending you notifications every month. You chose to ignore them," she rebuked. "And more importantly, you need to make amends for how you've treated Rosetta." Unmoved, my mother-in-law attempted to deflect the blame. "Rosetta's accusations. She's just my daughter-in-law. Why should it concern anyone else?" she argued defiantly. "She's probably making things up. She's always been deceitful, finding excuses to avoid chores and work," my mother-in-law continued, her voice rising in frustration as she directed her accusations towards Grandma. "I've never lied simply because you believe I'm overweight," I asserted firmly, my voice trembling with suppressed anger. "You've burdened me with endless chores, robbing me of precious time with my child. Do you have any idea how difficult it was to be instructed to brave the winter cold in nothing but a t-shirt? You've been spreading these falsehoods to anyone who will listen, always eager to shirk responsibility," my mother-in-law retorted with a smug grin. However, her confidence waned when I played back the recorded snippets of her and Andy's snide comments from my phone. "That's fabricated," she exclaimed, her facade faltering. In a moment of frustration and desperation, I dashed to the closet, snatching up a rag crafted from my discarded clothes. Slamming it onto the table, I challenged her. "How do you explain this? My clothes reduced to rags, just as captured in the recording." "Enough, Rosetta. Perhaps Mom's actions were a tad extreme, but let's not overlook the fact that your lack of effort only fueled her frustration," Andy interjected, his tone laced with condescension. "Before pointing fingers, take a moment to reflect on your own actions." "Excuse me, are you blind? Since moving here, I've shed at least 22 pounds, he continued defensively. "The reason my clothes don't fit isn't because I've gained weight, but because I've lost it so rapidly. Everyone except you and Mom is concerned about how thin I've become." Andy's words seemed to dawn on him as he acknowledged the extent of my weight loss. I deeply regret entrusting Rosetta to your care, my father chimed in, his voice tight with restrained anger. Clenching his fists on his lap, he fixed the steely gaze on Andy and the others. But I've been the primary caregiver for Daniel, Andy persisted, his determination evident. Rosetta simply isn't equipped to handle him. We're prepared to take this to court to ensure we retain custody of Daniel. Indeed, courts typically lean towards the mother's favor, the lawyer interjected calmly, his tone carrying an air of authority. But consider this, would they entrust Daniel to individuals who fail to even notice Rosetta's dramatic weight loss? Can you afford the expenses associated with hiring a lawyer and covering court fees? Furthermore, I will also be pursuing claims for alimony and land rent for this property. The gravity of the situation seemed to dawn on my mother-in-law. This is so unjust, she muttered, her voice trembling with frustration. Who's being unjust here? My father countered, his tone firm. Both of you have tormented Rosetta and even attempted to separate her from Daniel. Where did the money Rosetta earned go? Why did she flee to her parents' home in nothing but a t-shirt, carrying Daniel through a snowstorm? My usually reticent mother-in-law's facade crumbled as she began to weep, casting blame on my mother-in-law. I am truly sorry. We will make amends for spoiling Daniel and causing Rosetta such anguish. Grandma spoke up, addressing us directly before signaling to the lawyer. Simply settle your debts and we'll sever all direct ties with you and inform our relatives, I asserted firmly. Following that resolution, I tendered my resignation from the part-time position, duly informing headquarters of my mother-in-law's meddling. The company expressed regret and assured me of measures to prevent such power imbalances among part-timers. While no repercussions were reported for the individual acquainted with my mother-in-law, assurances were made regarding future safeguards. In the ensuing weeks, my divorce from Andy reached its conclusion. Securing custody of Daniel and receiving a fair amount of child support, I navigated the challenges with resolve. Andy's financial strain was palpable, particularly as he assumed responsibility for the outstanding land rent. Grandma's light-hearted jest about the house's fate hinted at the irony of the situation. Transitioning to a new phase of life, I relished the opportunity to reside with my parents, cherishing the precious moments spent with Daniel. With plans to eventually join my father's company, I utilized the divorce settlement to rejuvenate my wardrobe, reveling in the joy of coordinating outfits with Daniel. As I looked toward the future, I eagerly anticipated the prospect of devoting even more time to my son.